All right, thanks. We're going to try this. I don't know what's going on with the mic, but hopefully we can get it figured out. So, is it better now? Yeah. Okay, we'll see how it goes. This has been one of those days for technology, but we're glad you're here this morning. I'll be honest, as a pastor, this day is a little tough for me. Because as a pastor, you want to try to minister to everybody, and I know that for most of us, when we talk about Mother's Day, it's an exciting day. People like me, I had a great mom, I had a great example. But I know that this is a day with mixed feelings for many people that are here. We have people here who aren't moms. We have people who have wanted to be a mom, but for whatever reason could not have children. We have moms here who were at a different place in their life than they are now, and they may have had an abortion and lost a child. We have moms here who have buried children. We have people here who had no mom as an influence in their life. So it's a wide variety of people. When we talk about Mother's Day, most of us, we like to think of it as always a great thing, but yet for many, today is a day with a lot of struggles. Some people here have lost a mom, and so today brings back all of those memories. So, like I say, it's a tough day to figure out as a pastor how you minister to all of the people who are involved in it. So this morning, what I want to do is there's a lot of great moms mentioned in the Bible. But I'm going to go to one this morning that we don't talk about very often. I'm going to go to one that when you think about moms, I guarantee you this is not one that comes to your mind. But this morning, we're going to look at a mom called Hagar, who had a son called Ishmael. We're going to look at her story because I think there's a lot of great lessons in there for us, because I'm going to contend this morning that she was a godly gal, even though she was from Egypt. So let me give you just a short synopsis. Then the plan is this. I'm going to read the text. Then I'm going to go back and I'm going to talk about all of the people that are involved in this story, and then we're going to apply it. So short story is this. Abraham and Sarah had come out of Egypt. They were looking forward to having a child. They couldn't have a child. So Sarah decides, I will give you my handmaiden, Hagar. You're going to have a child with her. And she does that, and that doesn't turn out well. They end up despising each other, and so Hagar takes off. Actually, on 2 occasions she takes off. First time she takes off, she's pregnant. The second time she takes off is 13 years later, and she has Ishmael with her. And she takes off and heads out of the area, and God meets her. And you see an incredible response on her part. So let's read the story, and then let's talk about all of the characters. This is now Sarai. Okay, I'm going to say Sarah and Abraham because these are their names before they were changed. Okay, is Sarai and Abram is who it is, or Sarah and Abraham, but their names aren't changed yet in the story. But so if I interchange them, that's why. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, but she had an Egyptian slave named Hagar, and so she said to Abram, the Lord has kept me from having children. Go sleep with my slave. Perhaps I can build a family through her. Abram agreed to what Sarah said, and so after Abram had been living in Canaan 10 years, Sarah, his wife, took her Egyptian slave Hagar and gave her to her husband to be his wife, and he slept with Hagar, and she conceived. Now, when she knew she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. Then Sarai said to Abram, you are responsible for the wrong I'm suffering. I put my slave in your arm, and now that she knows she's pregnant, she despises me. May the Lord judge between you and me. Abram says, your slave is in your hands. Do with her whatever you think is best. And Sarai mistreated Hagar, so she fled from her. Now, pay very close attention to this next phrase. Now, the angel of the Lord, notice the whole time Lord has been in capital letters. We're going to talk about that. That's significant. Found Hagar near a spring in the desert. Now, it was the spring that is beside the road to Shur, and he said, Hagar, slave of Sarai, where have you come from and where are you going? I'm running away from my mistress Sarah, he answered. Then the angel of the Lord told her, go back to your mistress and submit to her. The angel added, I will increase your descendants so much that they'll be too numerous to count. The angel of the Lord also said to her, you are now pregnant. You will give birth to a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery. He will be a wild donkey of a man. By the way, this is not what any mom wants to hear, okay? He will be a wild donkey of his man. His hand will be against everyone, everyone's hand against him. He will live in hostility towards all of his brothers. Isn't that encouraging, moms? She gave this name to the Lord. She gave this name to the Lord who spoke to her. You are the God who sees me. And that's an important phrase too. For she said, I have now seen the one who sees me. This is why it is called Beer Lahai Roi, and it is still there between Kadesh and Beer. Now Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram gave the name Ishmael to the son she had born. And Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore him Ishmael. Now, I'm a big fan of religious art, okay? Because I think religious art puts a visual idea to some of it. So let me show you a couple of pictures that have been painted over the years to put this in perspective. This 80-plus-year-old guy is presented with her versus his, I'm going to guess 70-year-old wife. She brings Hagar to him and says, here, you sleep with her, and maybe she'll be able to give you children. So you can understand the dilemma that everyone is faced with. So let's just talk about the Bible characters here, kind of put it in perspective. Later, by the way, here's another painting of, this is actually 13 years later. Ishmael's a teenager now. She runs away again, and the angel meets her. He's about ready to die, by the way, and she says he's going to go off to the side. That happens about 13 years later when Isaac is born. But anyway, so let's talk about some of these characters. Let's talk about Sarah for a minute before Hagar comes into the picture this way. Sarah's 75 years old. Give her some credit for the idea that she greatly loves her husband. This is a much different culture at the time. A woman's primary role was to provide children. In that culture, children were an economic asset. The more children you had, the more farm you could have, the more animals you could have, the bigger your operation became. So when you got married, it was assumed that you were going to provide, if you were a woman, that you were going to provide children for your husband. That's why it's such a big deal in the early stages of the Bible. In fact, in this culture, if you could not provide children, that was a cause for divorce. You were allowed to divorce your wife if she could not provide children for you. So Sarah's concerned at this point. She's looking at her husband, realizing we have no future if we have no children. So I think she does this out of a obligation, out of a love, whatever you want to call it, for her husband. They've been in this area now about 10 years since they've left Egypt. She hasn't been able to conceive, so she comes up with this plan. A slave was property in that culture. So you could do with them whatever you wanted. So one of the things that you see in this story is you see this idea that she comes to Abram and she says, I'll tell you what, I will give you my handmaiden Hagar. and maybe she can produce children for you. Now, the problem is Abram was monogamous. So at this point, we haven't done this many wives kind of thing, but she presents her as a wife. Now that's where this gets really, really complicated. So she presents this plan to Abram, and I think out of the flesh, Abram's going, sounds good to me. I don't see any problem with this. Instead of trusting the Lord, I think he really fails here. Instead of dealing with the thing, he looks at it and goes, yeah, it sounds great to me. So she brings Hagar in, and the problem is Hagar becomes pregnant. Now here's where that gets complicated. Here is Sarah, okay, here. Here is Hagar here, her servant. When she gave Abram Hagar, they were now co-equal wives. When Hagar becomes pregnant, she now has the sole heir to Abram and his inheritance. So now Hagar, technically, who is a slave, is now above Sarah. And so Sarah starts asking her, hey, I need you to clean these pots and pans. Wait a minute. Who are you to tell me what to do? I have the heir. You have nothing. And so she starts to despise Sarah. So Sarah now comes to Abram. And he says, hey, she's not treating me right. And she's a slave. And Abram, instead of being the man of the house and taking leadership and solving the problem, looks at his wife and as a passive husband says, oh, honey, you just do whatever you want. So Sarah goes, I'll fix this. This is a mess. And now Sarah decides to start mistreating Hagar. And it gets to the point that Hagar can't handle it anymore, and she goes away. So let's talk about Hagar for a second, because this is the thing that, this is the gal who I am amazed at in the Bible. So let's put the history together. Hagar came from Egypt. When Sarah and Abraham leave Egypt, remember, they goes down and goes, she's my sister, and lies and all that kind of whole mess. So when they leave Egypt, they get a whole bunch of stuff. And one of the things that they get is a bunch of slaves. A lot of Bible scholars believe that Hagar was actually a daughter of one of the pharaohs. So what they believe is that as a gift, when she got ready to leave, they gave her to them to kind of keep the peace. So Hagar now they've been in Palestine, in this area now for about 10 years. So she hasn't really been in Egypt for 10 years, and she's been exposed to Abram and Sarah and their God and their worship. She came from a polytheistic world. She came from a world where all kinds of gods were worshipped in Egypt. And I'm going to tell you what I believe happened. What I believe happened is that in that process, not only did she become a believer in God, but she developed a relationship with God. And I'll show you why I think that way in a second. But when you look at the Genesis account, here's some things that stand out about Hagar. On 2 occasions, God comes to her. She's mentioned 12 times in the book of Genesis. She is the first woman to hear from God since the Garden of Eden. Now remember, this is an Egyptian, not a Jew. Not only that, but she is the first woman in the Bible to hear a promise from God. And remember, she is an Egyptian, not a Jew. When God gives the covenant to Abram, and the sign of the covenant is circumcision, it is her son that is going to be the first one circumcised after Abram. She and her family are a big deal when we talk about the Bible. She is a servant, so think of her as like the personal secretary to Sarah. Now here's what I think is fascinating, and this is what stands out to me in this story, probably greater than anything else. The Bible says an angel of the Lord came to her, and the Lord is in all capital letters. That's Jehovah, Yahweh. Most of the time, so in the Old Testament, if you see angel or angel of the Lord, anytime you see it in capitalized, that's God. If you don't know whether the angel's God or not in the Old Testament, here's how you know. If the angel demands worship, that's God. If the angel points worship to God, that's a messenger, an angel. I'll give you an example. When Joshua and they're coming in, and he says, whose side are you on? He says, take your shoes off, you're standing on holy ground. Well, that's God. Here's what I think is fascinating. Most of the time, whenever anybody in the Old Testament encounters God, the angel of the Lord, they're scared. Most of the time, the response of the angel is fear not. God comes to her, doesn't rattle her. Why? Why? I'm going to maintain it's because she had developed a relationship with God. And it's interesting to me, God asks her a question, 2 questions actually. Where are you from and where are you going? She didn't know where she was going. She was just running. And what happens is God comes to her and God says, this is what's going to happen. And this is how it's all going to play out. And God is brutally honest with her. Your kid's going to be a wild man. Good luck. God basically comes to her, and what's so amazing, again, she's not scared, she's not afraid, and what I think is so fascinating is she gives him the name, the God who sees me. Not the God who hears me. And I think that's significant. Because she meets God, if you were, face to face, and in her world, that's no big deal. Why? Because I think she had a relationship with God, and it was no big deal when God showed up. What she was amazed at is she got to see him. So I think there's a ton of lesson in this passage. So this thing is packed full. There's lessons from Sarah, there's lessons from Abraham, but I think I want to focus this morning on 3 lessons from Hagar, and here's the first one. Running away doesn't solve a problem. You need to understand that. And I think we forget that. I think we like to run from our problems. Many of you know about my trip to Gene and I on our spring vacation. And we were in Rocky Mountain, or not Rocky Mountain, Smoky Mountain. And my routine every day is I sit in the hot tub, I watch the sun come up over the mountains, I drink my coffee, and there was one morning I was in there for an hour. Believe me, I work hard and I play just as hard. And I rest just as hard. So I'm chilling out and everything else. Next to last day, I hear a noise behind me. I turn around and here's my friend. My head is where that little cushion was. And at the point, he hadn't climbed up there yet. His head was over top of the railing looking at me. So I could have reached out with my hand. He could have reached out with his paw and we could have shaken hands. That's how close we were. Somebody said, was it big? I said, at that range, yes. Now here's the thing. What do? I'm in a hot tub, faced away. Everything in me said, run. When you get to anywhere that there are bears, here's what the National Park Service will tell you. If you encounter a bear, stay calm and do not run. Speak in a calm voice. I wasn't talking to this thing. Back away slowly and give the bear space. So I'm sitting there going, okay. I turned around, got out of the hot tub, grabbed my towel. Then I had about, in this particular case, I was about 20, 25 feet from probably more than that, but to the cabin. Jean was still in the cabin. And I quietly, slowly, deliberately walked briskly, but I did not run. And then, I love this. If the bear charges you, bear spray if you had it. We had 3 cans of bear spray in the cabin. Or play dead if it's a grizzly bear. I knew this wasn't a grizzly bear. Or fight back if it's a black bear. I wasn't interested in a fight. I was chilling out, watching the sunrise over the mountain. From the inside of the cabin, I watched as it climbed up on that fence, climbed over, got on the edge of the hot tub, and started drinking my coffee. Eventually, it knocked that cup off, and then it went down, and then it got down onto the deck, licked up all of the coffee, then climbed back over the rail and took off. So it was quite fun experience, actually. At that point, I'm comfortable enough to actually go out. Again, it's so stupid. I'm like, I can get pictures of this. So I actually leave the safety of the cabin, go out, walk to the edge of the deck, and start snapping pictures of this thing as it is trying to climb back over and go back down the hill. I should have taken a video. It would have been a great video of it drinking my coffee. I just couldn't get my camera fast enough, or my phone fast enough. Everything in me wanted to run. Have you ever been there? The situation's overwhelming. You got to get away. You just want to run. You want to get away from this job, quit this job, get rid of that boss, and start somewhere else. God comes to Hagar and says, Hagar, I need you to do the hard thing. I need you to go back and be her servant. Here's what you'll find in life. God often asks you to do the hard things so that life gets easier. Not do the easy things so life gets harder. I'm watching so many teenagers, so many college kids, so many young people take shortcuts. Do the hard thing. I fought this with my kids the whole time they were growing up. Oh, Dad, I want to drop this class. The teacher's too hard. No. Stick with it. God, often we'd have this discussion. My kids worked for Best Buy. And Best Buy had this deal where, they take these 17, 18-year-old kids, and then they put these 22-year-old managers in charge of them. And everybody was learning goofy management styles back then. And the kids would come home and say, I want to change department. And I said, don't. I said, do you like what you do? Stay there. Yeah, but my manager's he's crazy. He's on my case. He's out to get me, blah, 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 blah. I said, so let's say you change department. I said, what's to say Best Buy's not going to move him as a manager of that department? I said, what are you going to do? Just play hopscotch all over the thing? Trying to ignore this guy? I said, learn how to deal with difficult managers, because you know what? You're going to have them in life. I said, when you're 30, 35 years old and you've got a family to raise, you just can't jump jobs back and forth, back and forth, back and forth because of that. I said, you stick it out. I said, if you want to make a decision, act. Don't react. Don't run from something. This is the advice I'm getting as I'm getting older and people start talking retirement. Some of the best advice I have gotten right now has been this. Don't retire from something, retire to something. And I watched my dad struggle because my dad retired from Texaco, but my dad didn't retire to something. It took him about 5-6 years to finally figure out what he wanted to do. And what I would say is be careful about this idea of running to solve your problem. And Hagar runs, and she doesn't even know where she's going. I personally think she was going to head back to Egypt in the comfort and safety of Daddy. But she doesn't even answer the question. Because all she's doing is running from something. And here's what I would say. It's so easy in this culture to just keep running from. And I think it's a great lesson for us. And God basically comes to her and says, look, here's how candid God is. Go back and do the hard thing and be a servant. And by the way, let me tell you what your future looks like. He's a wild man. Everybody's going to hate him, and all he's going to do is cause trouble. Go back and raise that kid now. And she does. She goes back and does hard. Look, moms, I'm not going to kid you. It is hard trying to raise Christian kids in this kind of world. But you stick with it. You stick with it. A second thing that I see about this incredible gal is she was comfortable in the presence of God. Do you understand how significant that is? She's an Egyptian who was comfortable in the presence of God. Moms, I think it's a challenge for all of us, but I'm talking to moms particularly this morning. Do everything you can to be comfortable in the presence of God. I was very fortunate. I was raised with a mom who prayed for me and who loved me. My wife, her family didn't become Christian until she was 16 years old. But I'm going to tell you right now, Betty knew how to pray. And she was a praying woman. I can't tell you how important that is, Mom. It's important for all of us. One of the things that I admire most about my wife, there's a lot of things I admire about her, but she is a praying woman. I have watched her pray, the boys, they'd bring home some girl. First of all, they didn't bring her home till they dated her for a while. You never, first date, hey, come on and meet my family. No. They'd bring these girls home. I loved them all. Hey, you want to be Facebook friends? Oh, great. I'm still Facebook friends with some of them. And I don't know, you guys been married, 10 years and 12 years? I still have Facebook friends with some of their old girlfriends. It's crazy. I loved them all. I just wanted a daughter-in-law, I was just excited about that. I did. Jean wouldn't say anything. She'd just pray. I watched her pray away more girls. And finally, Aaron and Alex came along, and Jean knew, these are keepers, boys. One of the things that you don't know about my wife's been teaching over 40 years now? 42 years. How many years in kindergarten? 38 in kindergarten. In kindergarten years are like dog years. That's like 500 years. One of my favorite pictures, and I saw it this year, and it's one of my favorite pictures, and I finally got a copy. I finally made a copy of it. But this is what my wife does every day. She has all of the kids in her kindergarten class stand in a circle. And what she does is she walks behind, she puts her hands on her shoulders, and she prays out loud for that kid. Lord, thank you for so-and-so. They've been such a great leader this year. I want you to continue to encourage them and protect them and help them and everything else. And when she's done, they sit down and she goes to the next kid. Every kid in that class, every day for 180 days. When those kindergartners walk out of her class, they have had a teacher stand behind and pray for them every single day out loud for 180 days. You don't think that makes an impact on a kid? You don't think that does something spiritually in the life of those kids? Because she is helping them get comfortable in the presence of God. I can't talk about how important this is, Mom. That you become people, you go, well, my kids are off the deep end, or my kids are this, or my kids are that. Listen, you pray, pray, pray. Because only God can move hearts. And as I talk about this with Hagar, it's so amazing to me. God shows up, and the angel of the Lord is standing there, and it doesn't faze her. She's not scared. Why? The only way you can do that is if you are comfortable in the presence of God. And then when she's done, she doesn't look at it and say, oh, thank you, you're the God who hears me. She says, you're the God who sees me. I think that's the third point. A third idea about this woman is that she understood at this moment that God sees and knows what she was going through. I mean, let me tell you something. Abram, he would have been a wreck. You know why? His entire future was gone. All of a sudden now, his pregnant servant, who was going to be the way that he was going to have children and an inheritance and a future and everything else, was not standing there. And when she's there, she says, this is the God who sees me. And I have seen him face to face. And what I would say to you is no matter what you're going through right now, here's what you need to remember. God sees. And he understands. And he knows exactly where you are. He knows exactly your fears and concerns. He knows every single thing about you. He's not taken by surprise. And I don't know what you're going through, but here's what I would say to you this morning. You have a God who sees you. And he knows your fears. He knows your concerns. He knows and you don't have to run. He can give you the help and the power to face whatever you need to face. And I know this whole parenting thing is overwhelming. I'm sorry, I'm old school. We're in a culture with parenting where, you kind of want to bubble-proof your kid, and there's probably an element that you have to do that. But I'm of the old school that, a car seat involved mom doing that. Trying to keep you from going through the dash, I remember riding in you remember station wagons? You just throw kids in the back? I was thinking the other day, I put the radio went out in Gene's Mustang, so I was putting a new radio in. And I'm sitting there thinking about this thing, and I'm going, I remember when we went from 8, first of all, AM, FM, and then you had all the stuff, and then you went to the 8-track, and then you went to the cassette, and then you did the MP3 thing, and you did all that crazy stuff over the years. And it just changes. It just, the culture and everything changes so fast. You're trying to raise kids in this it's like it's like a target that's always moving, trying to figure it all out. And I get that. I get how, I watch my own kids and my grandkids and all that. I'm like, man, you guys got it so complicated. It was simple for us. It was simple. And then, some of you wait till you strap your first kid in a car seat. Like, you got to do what? Honestly, there's no point now. I look at the kids and go, tell me what to do. I understand you're 2, but you know what goes where. What do I have to click and snap and do all this kind of stuff? Look, I get it's hard. But you just keep plugging away at it. More than anything else, you pray. And you pray, and you pray, and you pray. And you get comfortable in the presence of God, and you get your kids comfortable in the presence of God. It's interesting to me when you study the life of Hagar 13 years later, she runs again. Isaac shows up, and it gets really complicated now because but for 13 years she was like this, and now with Hagar, now with Isaac showing up, now all of a sudden it goes like this. And her kid, who's been an only child, now is number 2 and pretty much non-existent. And it gets hard for a mom to watch. She's like, I think, let's just go to Egypt. And she runs again. And you know what happens? God shows up again. Because that's the kind of God we serve. So I end this morning with this challenge. I pray that we learn to realize it doesn't depend on us to figure it out. We have to learn to do God's will, God's way, in God's time. God is watching, and he sees your situation. Often his answer comes in doing the hard thing, but blessings come as a result of obeying him. So follow him this week. Let's pray. Lord, help us. Thanks for this mom that we don't think of so often. But yet, Lord, in a number of ways, teaches us so many things about you and about ourselves. So help us to be honest with ourselves. Lord, for those that are struggling to do the hard things, the right things, would you encourage your hearts this morning? For those who think that maybe, Lord, you don't understand or you don't see or you don't know, that God, in a unique way, you would show yourself to them. And for all of us, Lord, may this week we draw close to your presence and be comfortable in your presence. And we'll give you the honor and the glory and the praise, these things we ask in your name. Amen. Let's stand together.